Okay, and we're back, and we're going to go over the ancient stone forms in architecture today. We're going to start with the Egyptians, move on to the Greeks, and then go to some of the Far Eastern architectural forms over there, and we'll see a lot of similarities in these different architectural forms, and we'll close it off with the observation of just a simple modern structure to show you that a lot of these forms are still commonly used today. All right, so let's get going. Okay, so again, ancient stone forms. All right, so the first one, this is an entrance to an Egyptian complex, and it's a pretty straightforward form. Basically, the main thing I wanted you to notice here is that while this is in general a block of stacked stone, what we have here and here are basically these stacks of stone on the left and right that form a post, and then the horizontal larger piece of stone that forms a lintel. So we see that twice. It's more prominent in the doorway, but that is the main thing we're seeing there. So we're seeing two posts and a lintel to form a doorway or an entrance to this structure. So we'll see if that is one of our forms. And you can probably guess it is because it was a common element of frames as well. So just go ahead and write that down. Post and lintel. And then here again we see another one. Now this time the posts are off to the side here, and they're circular columns of stone. The lintel is a larger piece of stone up above there, but again we see this kind of post and lintel structure here. So post and lintel. Now notice one of the things to keep in mind is this isn't exactly a narrow hallway, but it's important to keep in mind as you're looking through these. Do the posts ever get to be really far apart? And what do you think would happen if they did? So we'll keep that in mind. This again is another Egyptian temple, and the ruins of an Egyptian temple. And what we have here is we've got looks like 7 posts there, making, these large vertical stone posts, probably put together by individual blocks of stone. And then on top of each one, we've got these, looks like, what is that, 5 or 6 different lintels there. And we can see that they are kind of broken up along this section here. So again, another example of a post and lintel. And you'll notice that this is a form that doesn't work only in wood, as we saw in the frames observations, but it translates pretty well to large stone structures as well. Now you'll notice that these posts are very large, and they're relatively tightly spaced compared to the kind of width of the posts. So it's not quite making a wall, but definitely these lintels cannot be very long, or they don't seem to ever be very long. All right, now this one is kind of a unique Egyptian one. Now you might have looked for posts and lintels, and maybe you're like, up here, is this like ceiling formed from a bunch of lintels and the posts on either side? Well, you might have caught that, but what I really wanted you to catch is as people are going down this hallway, you can see it's a very tall hallway. But notice it gets narrower as you go toward the roof. And the reason why it does that is if you look at what's happening at each level of the block, the stones are overhanging the ones below them. Okay? Now, I'm gonna actually come back to this slide because we haven't seen this yet, but we'll take a closer look at other examples of this. But this is what I was hoping you would pick up on. Okay. Now here, this is an entrance to, I believe this is an entrance to Khufu's pyramid. And what we've got here is we've got these large sort of slabs of stone leaned together. And in this case, we've got one on top of the other. But basically leaned together to make this triangular opening right here. Now, what we call this thing, and you probably found this in some of your other designs as well. What we call this thing is a triangular arch. So that is the second form, or possibly the third form. This one back here is the second form, and we'll come back to that if we see a couple more examples of it, because this is a variation of it that was a good image in this hallway inside the Egyptian pyramids, but you can see the form a little bit more simply in some of the other ones. So yeah, there was a triangular arch. Okay. So moving on to Stonehenge, included this one because it's a cool little example of gigantic stone posts and lintels. So we have just another post and lintel right here. Going into the Greek Parthenon, we saw a picture of this, slightly different angle, but we can now kind of characterize what's going on here. We've got these very tall, kind of ornately designed columns that are serving as posts. And if we look closely, we can see where these individual blocks of stone are made into individual lintels. And again, the roof of the Parthenon is long since gone, but the stone that kind of formed the foundation that the roof was on is still there, and it's largely a post and lintel structure. So now when you have a whole bunch of columns in a row like that, it's a slightly different name. We'll get into that when we look more closely at Greek architecture and Greek developments later. But definitely a post and lintel structure again here. So we'll note that. All right. Moving on to the next one. This is another very, very clear example of a post and lintel. I included this one so you could see that sometimes the Greek columns were shorter. Notice they're also designed kind of differently. Like these ones have the ridges. We call that fluting all the way down. These ones basically are smooth all the way down, but have pretty ornate tops. We call those the capitals. And then we have the lintels just sitting across the post. So this is another example of post and lintel. And seen a lot of post and lintels at this point. The next one is actually well, it's a little bit different, but we also have a post and lintel here. So you've got the lintel right there. The post is actually, basically it's a stack of stones serving as the post, but we definitely have a lintel right there. However, what I was hoping you would see was actually the stone structure above it. And notice what we have here is that on each subsequent stone, it overhangs the previous stone a little bit, such that we get this sort of opening there. Now, it looks kind of similar to a triangular arch, but as a reminder, what a triangular arch was two slabs leaned together like this. That's not what's going on here. What we're doing here is we've got overlapping bricks making overhanging bricks, making a similar shape, but not exactly using the same stone arrangement. What we call this side of it, this is called a corbel. So the corbel is the single side where you have one set of bricks overlapping the next one, and so this thing, it gradually, it moves. Your bricks are moving in one direction, kind of overhanging where there is no support. We call that a corbel. When you join two corbels together like this we call a corbelled arch. Now, I want to go back to the Egyptian one, because it's basically what we have here. Now, basically this is a little bit different, because the corbelled arch, all it was doing was it was creating an opening in a wall. What this is doing, it's actually kind of taking a corbel and elongating it to make a hallway. When we do that with an arch, when we elongate an arch, any kind of arch, could be a triangular arch, or we'll learn about other types of arches, but when we elongate an arch to make a hallway, we call that a vault. So this one would be called a corbelled vault. Okay, so similar to a corbelled arch, it's just that the arch makes kind of a gap in a wall, you know, like for a door or an entrance of some kind. A vault is a long hallway made from similar stone structures. So that's what we're seeing there. Okay, so those are the Greek ones. Now we're going to get into things that we've, you know, those are basically the three forms. The corbel and corbelled arch kind of combines as one form, and corbelled vault. The triangular arch and the post and lintel. Now this is a pretty simple stone structure in Spain, but I liked it because I thought it was a pretty good example of the triangular arch. And you can kind of see what the triangular arch is doing. It's longer slabs of stone that are leaned together such that they can support all this weight above it. And it's maybe you could just have a longer piece of stone right there, but that's not how this particular one was made. And one of the advantages of this is you can make the doorway a little bit bigger, but think about other advantages this might hold as well over just a straight post and lintel there. So here we have another example of a corbelled arch right here. Another example of a corbel. And then if you notice here, this thing is kind of, it's almost making a room out of corbels, where like the ceiling, the four sides of the room seem to be coming together in terms of to form a ceiling that's kind of like a corbel. Now, I don't think this one quite does that. I think the ceiling just kind of narrows, but this is another interesting example of a corbel as well. So there's for that one. Now, again, what we have here, we have a corbel coming together to form an arch, but then it forms a long hallway, so this one would actually be, again, a corbelled vault that we're looking at right now. To this one, we have the Indonesian. We have another example of a corbel kind of forming an archway for this door. At the top, the corbels are meeting, but down here, it's rather than a corbel there, it's almost like we have, again, a post. So you can kind of combine these. You can combine posts and then put corbels at the top instead of lintels, or like with the Spanish, where the Spanish architecture, it's not exactly a post, but it's kind of a stack of stones that's serving as a post. And then instead of putting a lintel at the top, you put a triangular arch at the top. So this is a way that these forms can be combined in that way. Then going to the modern, again, just to note, you've got the post and lintel right here. You've got the triangular arches to form these windows. Corbels are a little bit less common in modern architecture. You see them occasionally, but what you tend to see more of is more standard arches, and maybe you caught this, that you have sort of these curved arch shapes, kind of similar to the domes we saw in some of those simpler structures. And so corbels, they tend to be less commonly used arches. You won't see them nearly as often as, you know, when you just go around looking at modern structures, but you do see them occasionally. And they you can see, you know, they were secure enough that you can make this hallway in this Egyptian temple out of corbels. And even though it's a pretty narrow hallway, it still worked, and it's lasted millennia. So these are the stone forms that worked pretty well to build some of these rather impressive stone structures. Okay, so hopefully you caught all three of those, and now you should be set to answer the rest of the questions on the homework. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next lecture.